You were just making a point during the break, Rich Benjamin, that I think should be made on air, right? About the fact that even if Trayvon Martin, even if the facts were different, even if he had arrests, right? Even if he, he wasn't this innocent 17-year-old boy, it still doesn't matter.
I was making that point because after I wrote that piece in the New York Times that you referred to, I got a lot of angry emails and people saying, don't you know he wore jewelry, he had gold teeth,
really?
He was tattooed, he was suspended. And I thought, as though people that you don't disagree with or who don't look like you don't have rights. And I told that person that even if he had been a convicted felon out on the streets, safely and legally, he still not would deserve that, and he is still entitled to rights as an American citizen and as a human being. So we have to keep repeating that, is that A, this is a kid, as John was saying, who had many activities like other kids who remind us of our cousins and nephews and so on, but it doesn't matter. And we can't.
Right, I agree, and everybody should be able to walk the streets without being shot peacefully. And I would say it was
controversial pronouncement from
a very big case of racial profiling, and I would also like to talk a little bit about the social media impact on this case. It's really trial by tweet. You send out these Twitters all over the place, and they're showing up at other people's homes and terrorizing them and passing lies and misinformation. And
the photo is a great example. That photo that we showed.
Exactly.
And again, not that it matters. It would be perfectly fine for a 17-year-old boy to pose with his middle fingers up. That's perfectly, and also the marijuana baggie to me, like that detail in terms of what you're saying. It's like, how many white kids in America, how many white kids in prep schools here in New York City have been found with an empty marijuana baggie? I know a lot of them. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, the idea that that is somehow, like, that shows him to be some sort of thug. I mean,
and as if George Zimmerman on some level of quantum physics could perceive.
That's right.
Well, that was precisely George Zimmerman's stance, it sounds like, but a big part of this, and it goes beyond this case, it goes beyond criminal justice, it's racial profiling, but it goes beyond that, is the idea that you have to be a victim in order to receive justice, and that if you're not a victim, then, well, maybe you had what you got, and I think it goes to poverty. That it's the same thing for whether or not you deserve social services. It's the same thing in immigration, whether or not you are, how illegal are you?
How abject you are.
And if you can't be either a hero or a villain, then you don't have a place in the conversation.
And let me actually flip this around for a second in terms of the villain, because I also feel like there's a level at which the way that the narrative is going to proceed is that, like, George Zimmerman is the villain in this, right? I mean, and I don't know. I mean, I think all the facts that I know show that he acted terribly, right? And that I think he should be arrested. But I also feel like there's the other side of the polarization machine is like, let's all figure out the true evil that lurks in the heart of George Zimmerman, which to me strikes me in some ways as counterproductive as the sort of opposite kind of characterization on the other side. Or maybe I'm being just like a softie. And
no, my sense of it is that Zimmerman certainly did have a certain obsession with young black men. He would probably put it as of a certain profile. I suspect, and I can only say suspect, and the hate mails and hate tweets are going to come for this, it seems that it's quite possible that Trayvon went ape boop upon him and was actually rather succeeding, and that maybe Zimmerman did become afraid. Now then you get into why he had a gun at all, but I get the feeling he was not a horrible human being. I don't know if he would make the racist definition, but he shouldn't have stopped him in the first place. That is his evil, that he was going through the neighborhood and even felt a reason to stop this kid because he was black and tallish and had a hoodie on. That was the problem. And until we get into that, then I think we're missing what the real point of all this was. Zimmerman could possibly have been the very nice guy he's being described as, but he had a problem, as America seems to have had a problem with, in seeing a young black man and thinking that somehow the young black man has something coming because of some sort of clothes he's wearing. If America thinks that young black men have something coming just because they're kind of tired of young black men, we have a problem, and I'm not sure that this national conversation or teaching moment can change it, and that's what really worries me. I don't know if Trayvon things won't keep happening.
What do you think about that?
I totally agree. The way you're flipping the script, there will be, and there is, this inclination to demonize George Zimmerman, and it speaks to the uncomfortable question, to what extent is America all George Zimmerman? I mean, people say we're all Trayvon, we're all Trayvon. People, his supporters at least, but the question will arise, to what extent is America all George Zimmerman?
What do you mean by that? That's a provocative statement.
It means exactly what John was saying. To what extent are we implicated in this fear of crime, irrational fear of crime? As Carolyn was saying, in some states, in many states, crime is going down, and yet we see this proliferation of stand your ground laws.
Right.
And we see these laws that address our fears, but that don't really address crime itself. And so how are we implicated in all that?
Yeah, and I mean, so one, I want to re-stress the idea that as long as we're talking about the individuals and what evil is in their heart or not, whether it was Zimmerman or Trayvon, we're not talking about the structures.
That's right.
And the structures at work are the key thing here. You know, getting back to the point about racial profiling, one of the things that I've heard a lot, you know, so there's a lot of debate about Zimmerman's ethnicity and whether he was Latino and whether or not that mattered. And, you know, when we think about racial profiling in New York City, you know, I mean, there's,
really good point.
If a black police officer stops a black youth and systematically to search for guns that they don't find, is that if the police officer is black, is it racial profiling? Yes. It doesn't matter the race, or the intent of the individual officer. The point was that there is a system inside the New York City Police Department that says this is how you look for guns. You profile a young black person who wears a hoodie, and you stop them and you search them illegally. Right. And so that's the conversation to be having around racial profiling. And around this case, I think it's about, why does he have a gun? Right. Why do people exist in this is one of Rich's interesting points. What about these gated communities in the first instance?
And why the suspicion? I mean, I think you just made the point that I find so sort of frustrating, and that is the most macro point to be made here. And we talk about the sort of prison industrial complex on this program a lot, and the war on drugs, etc. Is that the crime has been going down, and it's been historically low for a long time, and no amount of empirical drop in crime seems to eat away at the paranoia, suspicion, and fear. And in fact, the crime data, even from the police, the city in Florida, the town in Florida in which this happened, it's not like it's like rampant. You know, he said we've had a couple of break-ins. You hear Zimmerman talking as if like this specter of crime haunts you. You know, and the stand your ground law was defended by the lobbyist, the former president of the NRA, who defended it, said, you know, when you meet an intruder, right? When, not if, right? And you're going to find yourself in these conditions all the time. It's that paranoia that we don't seem to be able to chip away at, no matter how much the actual crime rate comes down. It's really maddening.
Well, as we know, with many things, the facts rarely rarely add up.
I have some hope in that.
You know, I mean, these are emotional things, and they're emotions that are deliberately being played upon to make people afraid. So,
Congressman, I want to hear what you have to say right after we take one quick commercial break. Sorry.
Yeah.